I've always suspected that there might be something wrong in my head, that I'm sick, twisted. I need to get this off my chest. I've never told anyone what I've experienced throughout my life until now. I figured this would be the perfect place to start, with full anonymity. I apologize in advance for the wall of text. Here goes nothing. Despite coming from a loving family, I craved attention as a child. I suppose it was only natural. My younger sisters were both born with special needs, and I felt somewhat neglected by my family. I'd often do disturbing things to catch the attention of my parents, force myself to throw up, deliberately walk into a coffee table to bruise my skin, cry for no reason, lie through my goddamn teeth. Like I said, I'm twisted. It was obvious when I was a child. Anyway, these stupid acts always meant that my parents would immediately focus on me, so my actions weren't without purpose. After behaving like that, I'd felt like the center of their world again, like I was a necessary being, not just a decorative piece of flesh to pad out the family photo on the front of Christmas cards. As I got older, my parents began to wise up to my tricks and started to focus on my siblings again, leaving me to sit in front of one of my Disney's VHSs with a bag of sweets to keep me satiated. My favorite was Pinocchio. Do you remember that old song from it? The one which tells you that your dreams will come true if you wish upon a star? My father got a new job when I was 8 years old, and we moved to the other side of England. I started a new school on a cold Monday in February, halfway through the school year. I didn't make friends easily. Children can be fickle, and although I was interesting to them for the first day, they soon grew bored of me and were irritated by how different I was to them. They started to ignore me too. I vividly remember walking home from school on the Thursday afternoon, kicking the puddles that formed along the pavement, and muttering to myself about how I'd show them that I was interesting and worth their time. I tunelessly hummed the song from Pinocchio the whole way home, and decided when I walked through the door and was immediately greeted by, "Get out of the way for God's sake," to see if wishes really could come true. I wish more than anyone could possibly know that I hadn't. That night, after being kissed goodnight and tucked in by my frazzled folks, I crept out of my bed and towards my window. My eyes scoured the sky, searching for a star to wish on. I didn't want to pick the brightest. Everyone would be wishing on that one. It would be a waste of time. I settled for one that was almost out of sight, semi-tucked behind the roof of the house that our garden backed onto. It looked like any other star in the sky, but had a touch of pale red to it. I liked that. The star was looking to stand out, just like I was. I closed my eyes and began to murmur wishes. As impatient as I am now as an adult, I had a far shorter attention span back then. Why wasn't anything happening? Why weren't my wishes for love, attention, and devotion coming true immediately? Why were my parents still snuggled up together downstairs without me? I got angry. I cursed at the star, telling it there was no way it could ever make my dreams come true. It was a stupid, worthless star. No wonder everyone preferred to look at the bright, shiny one instead. I slammed the windows shut, dragging the curtains back together, and stomped back to bed. I pulled the covers over my head to create my own little den in which to quietly seethe. Soon enough, I fell asleep. What I dreamt next would change my life forever. I'll just take a second to apologize for the poor way I'll describe this. It's still hard to relive it even 14 years later. My dream started off normally enough. I got a lift to school because it was raining harder than I'd ever seen. My mother nearly ran a red light, unable to focus due to my sisters screaming in their car seats. I ran into my classroom from the car park. It was temporarily housed in a shabby mobile unit due to building work going on in the main body of the school. The windows leaked and the wind whistled through the gap under the door. I walked into the classroom and nobody lifted their head. My Wellington boots squelched dejectedly as I made my way across the sodden carpet to sit at my desk. The teacher came in and asked us to settle down and take out our pencil cases. I grabbed mine and felt a sharp stab in the palm of my hand. By the time I glanced down, the blood had already begun to drip onto the wet carpet beneath me. I yelped. The teacher told another girl in the class to walk me up to the nurse's office to clean my hand up and see whether I needed to go to the hospital. We left the classroom and started walking. Along the way, we stopped into the ladies' bathroom and she wanted to use the facilities. Coming out of my cubicle, I looked down at my palm as I washed my hands. The blood mixed with water was the exact shade of pale red that the star had been. I smiled to myself, thinking of how childish I had been to think that wishing on a star would actually work, when a cool draft played across the nape of my neck. I looked up into the mirror. A woman stood behind me, head tilted down. Although her hair created a thin veil across her face, it was sparse enough to see her facial details. She had the most prominent cheekbones I'd ever seen, though perhaps they were exacerbated by the hollowness of her cheeks. Her skin, gray and listless, looked stretched over the bones of her face. It was flecked with age spots and small, pale, red bruises. A thin, twisted mouth hovered beneath her nose, quivering. I gasped and turned around. There was no one there. It must have been a trick of the light. Perhaps this cut was more serious than I'd first thought, and I had lost enough blood to make me hallucinate. I didn't really care if it was real or not. I needed to get out of here and away from this bathroom. I turned off the tap and foolishly glanced up at the mirror again. She was there, closer. Her head almost rested on my shoulders. I screamed, and she opened her eyes. Her pupils were mere pinpricks in the center of a bloodshot eyeball. She smiled at me, hot breath spilling onto my shoulder. She had 3 rows of teeth, much like a shark, each blackened with decay. They were pointed and growing longer before my eyes. She tilted her head slowly and reached forward through the mirror and shoved my chest so hard that I fell backwards. My head slammed into the hand dryer, and I woke up, knotted in my soaked bed sheets and heaving dry sobs. My parents burst into the room and held me until I drifted back into restless sleep. Now that alone would have been enough to terrify any 8-year-old child, but it was just the beginning. I woke up on my own. I heard my father singing and mother laughing downstairs and smelled my favorite breakfast, pancakes. I quickly joined them, forgetting all about my horrible dream. I ate my pancakes staring out of the window. It was raining harder than I'd ever seen before. I put on my Wellington boots and rain jacket and bounced out of the front door, only to soak myself in a gigantic puddle. The rain dripped inside my boots and stuck my toes together. I liked the way it felt, clammy. My mother insisted on giving me a lift to school on her way to drop my sisters off at daycare. She ran a red light on the way, and my skin prickled with a sense of déjà vu. Pushing it to the back of my mind, I ran to the classroom, where I squelched my way to my seat. The teacher blustered into the classroom, shaking her umbrella out, and told us to take out our pencil cases. I took mine out as told and felt a piercing pain in the palm of my hand. My heart steadily began to beat faster as the blood dripped onto the sodden carpet before I could look down. I must have turned a shade of white, because the teacher noticed and told a girl in my class to take me to the nurse's office. We walked slowly. The entire time I was telling myself that everything would be fine as long as we didn't stop off in the bathroom. She paused outside the bathroom door. "Please don't go in," I begged. "Why not? Are you scared to be out here on your own, big baby?" she taunted. "You were supposed to take me to the nurse's office, not stop off and kiss yourself in the mirror," I fumed. That did it. She glared at me and pushed me aside to get into the bathroom. I wish I'd gone in after her, but I couldn't. Every part of my body felt as though it was superglued to whatever it had been touching the moment she walked into that room. My feet glued to the floor, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Even my blood seemed stuck inside me. My palm had stopped dripping. A minute later, I heard a desperate scream, not a typical high-pitched Hollywood girl in a horror movie scream, but a real throaty scream from a terrified 8-year-old girl. It hung in the air, thick with desperation. I found myself able to move and ran to get the nurse. The girl was found in a crumpled heap on the floor, her head bleeding from a hard impact with the hand dryer. The taps were on, and the plug was in. There was water all over the floor. The nurse said she must have slipped on the water and fallen backwards. She'd fractured her skull and broken a hip. I knew better. I went to visit her in hospital while she was unconscious. I wanted to apologize, to shout at her for not listening to me, to cry and hug her, a myriad of emotions. In the end, I just sat at the edge of her bed, trying not to make eye contact with her sobbing mother. I hated myself. It should have been me. I walked myself home from the hospital, stomping in puddles as I had done that day, before everything changed. I looked down into one and swear I saw an old woman giggling to herself before my foot splashed her into 1,000 pale red droplets. Not everyone can pinpoint an exact period of time where their life changed forever, but this is mine. I have many more memories, but I think this will do for now.